so that they can take care of the business of the people. And this morning, our special guest this morning was or is one of those MPs who was out in the field yesterday. But she decided that it is good to share what she knows and what she plans with our people out there in the Guyanese, the diaspora, and in the communities in and around Guyana. Today, we want to welcome in a very special way once again to the show MP, the Honorable Cathy Hughes. Comrade Hughes, good morning and welcome again to the In Perspective show.
Much. Thank you. It's always good to start a day chatting with you, Ranford.
All right, I feel flattered.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for joining us once again. I know, um, it is always good to have one of the luminaries around and making themselves available. In your case, making yourself available to the Guyanese public as a one of our MPs. I just alluded to the fact that you had a very busy day yesterday and may have had a busy weekend as well in the final exercises. People are asking if Guyana is still a democracy with all the things that are happening in and around Guyana. How freely can one mix and mingle and interact with their constituencies? How freely are you able to mix with your constituencies, bearing in mind that the government has decided to target people once you speak out against
At least let me speak for myself. That's not so much an issue. Um, People are protected by persons like us are protected by the people around us. And in
them?
every community we go to, every community I go to, you're received warmly. Even if it's not necessarily a community that may have supported our government and our party. At the end of the day, I think most Guyanese are very hospitable people. The major issue for us, the major concern about mingling at this time is, of course, COVID. And that's why we went out of our way to structure the meetings that we had. It was many of us in very small groups, social distancing in place. And the beauty about Guyana, unlike some of what you're facing in New York, is that we have some beautiful open spaces, which makes it even easier to gather. You can't beat having a nice meeting with lush rice fields in the background. So it was a very good meeting, and we continue to stand for democracy as a government that was in place from 2015 to 2020. So we will always fight and defend our democracy. And let me take this moment to say thanks to you, because I know there are many of you in North America who are fighting that battle with us. And yes, you have a little more, I think, opportunity to do it safely than we may have. But knock wood, I think so far everybody has been safe. And of course, the victimization is really in the context of them coming up with crazy charges, holding you for 72 hours, trying to demean you and dent your spirit. And then it goes to the courts. And of course, so far, most of them have been thrown out. So that's it in a nutshell.
I take note of the fact that you have come from before your entry into politics, well, mainstream politics, I should say. You came from a media background. Um, what is the role of the media in ensuring good governance? Because in America, in North America here, I noted last night that one of the retired generals in the army, in an interview on television, said that um, one of the dangers to the American democracy or to democracy in America was the fact that Donald Trump attempted to stifle the
Yep.
media.
Yep.
And the media is what makes people aware in America here of what is going on in and around government. What is the role of the media in Guyana in ensuring good governance?
I think that the media in general, people will know, is considered the fourth estate. And the media in general, in any part of the world, really has to be the watchdog for societies, the watchdogs for that ensures that governments are keep intact, that do the things that they need to be doing, that ordinary people, vulnerable persons, have a voice to still have their issues carried through the media. And then, of course, the media is normally in most countries is the engine by which you can have intelligent debate, discussion at a national issue, at a national level. And we're extremely fortunate in today's world that the technology, the cell phone, allows even more citizens of countries to be able to talk back, to be able to engage their media operatives easily, or, of course, to be able to speak to their parliamentarians, to government, to officials. And although we have that opportunity with the technology, I do believe that we're not using it sufficiently. So I would say that in Guyana right now, we have some challenges with the way our media operates. Very rarely, and this is not something recent, but it is something that has been around for a long time. Guyana is one of the few places where, depending on which newspaper you read, and depending on, you automatically consider the ownership of that newspaper. And then you now know that the coverage in that newspaper will not be as objective as it should be. So when you go to university and they teach you about journalism, the things they tell you about are accuracy of the information. They tell you about the importance of balance. And so the balance means that if somebody says the sky is blue and somebody else says that the sky is gray, you're supposed to interview both people and get a sense of why one says it's blue, why one says it's gray, and then there should be no opinion unless you are writing an opinion piece. A news piece shouldn't have opinion. Your responsibility is to give the citizens and the viewers or the listeners the facts. So you give them the two sides of the story. You tell them what's happening, if it's going to court, if the police investigating, and then you respectfully leave it to the persons to form their own opinion
Mm.
based on the facts they have. We have a challenge, as I said, because sometimes you will only hear one side of the story. You will have no clue on what the person on the other side, what their contention will be. And therefore, that in itself, I think, is an assault on our democracy.
Mm.
Um, you know, the other thing too is that I think I've seen in Guyana for many, many years now. I'm talking going back maybe 10 years, that the elements of the media censor themselves, maybe without even knowing it. So I've had many times when I've engaged a reporter and I say, how come you didn't put this bit of information in your
Mm.
story? Oh man, Cathy, I can't do that. I can't put it in there. But there is, with the proper use of language, with the use of technology, with video, with music, with interviews, you can tell a story honestly, fairly, and objectively with balance. So that's part of the challenge that we have, you know?
But I want to extend on that a little.
Sure.
You know, what what is the role of the state media now? Because we are finding that in Guyana, pre 2015, well, between 1992 and 2015, the state media was not the state media as far as I saw it.
Yeah.
And then from 2015 to 2020, August 2nd, we in my opinion, I saw this the media that is controlled by the state, the people being paid by state funds and so on, being more, like the state media should. But now we don't have, what, in my view, again, we don't have state media. So, what really is supposed to be the role of the state media?
That's that's an excellent question. And you're right in your observation, because what we tried to do in 2015 was to bring our philosophy, the philosophy of a national media or state media entity, into the way the National Communication Network mainly, and of course the Chronicle, would operate. So the philosophy of the state media is that, as we know, they're paid by the state with taxpayers' money. And based on that, they have a responsibility to ensure that they present government information. Every society, and funny enough, my very first job, one of my first jobs, was with the Jamaica Information Service in Jamaica, which is similar to the what we used to call the Guyana Information Service, GIS, which became NCN. And the thinking is that any citizen in any country needs to know what his or her government is doing. They need to be able to understand government policy. And the thing about the private media is that if the private media has 8 pages in their newspaper to tell their various stories, they quite often are driven and want to tell stories that will sell the newspaper. So, although it would be important for people to understand, let's say, the elections petition and what's the difference between the two petitions and all these different areas, I'm only using that as an example.
Mhm.
Or a government project where you're taking water to 7 or 8 locations in the hinterland. Some newspapers or radio stations or media outlets may decide we ain't got time for that. We ain't got the space, we ain't got the time. We going on the sensational thing. Who say what, who get beat up, who, that kind of thing. And so the state media has a very important role in educating and informing citizens on national issues, on important international issues. So the state media are the ones that should be designing all the ads on COVID.
Mm.
The state media is the kind of entity in this time that could be doing some advertisements that encourage people not to go out on the street. We have a ridiculous thing where we have a curfew from 10 to 4 in the morning, and up to 8, 9, you drive down Church Street and people are still gambling. There's a mosque nearby. People are gambling and then going home to their families, a household that could have anywhere from 5 or 6 people in it. You still see folks on the seawall without a mask. They're going home. That one person that's there liming with a group of friends, they don't realize that they're liming with 10 people, and then they're going home to 5 people, and those
Mm.
5 people are going somewhere else. And that's why COVID has been so dangerous to societies everywhere. So the state media is supposed to keep us informed and educated. And I will say that the philosophy that we had that was slightly different is that we felt that everybody should be able, or most people should be covered. So we went back to actually covering, at the time, some of the opposition members of parliament. We would quite often have the opposition leader. If he made a big statement, it would be in the newscast, or or covered. I remember a time prior to 2015 when a gentleman at NCN aired my budget debate and was fired. And that
Oh,
is not a
wow.
rumor, that is fact. The gentleman was fired. And it's so funny because in 2017, a young man came to my office to do an interview, and he said to me, I just want you to know that I was fired because of you. And that was the first time we had the opportunity to meet him. But I only use that to show you the extremes where we have these insecurities where we feel that we cannot agree to disagree respectfully, that we can't hear different types of opinions, um,
Hmm.
that we have to attack. So that's the philosophy of it.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, and I'm happy that you mentioned that. I'd like to uh, just stay in the same vein and segue to the COVID-19 sort of situation in Guyana for a minute, and then I'll come to Mrs. Cathy Hughes, the politician, before we wrap up. So I have done some research overnight, and I found that the COVID-19 has devastated the whole world so far. And I don't think there's a country in the world that has not been touched by COVID-19, even in the minutest or the smallest way. And the CDC here in America has issued an advisory to their citizens and permanent residents
Yeah.
that they should avoid traveling to Guyana, which in a way is going to affect our economy, because we're trying to push tourism now too. So the population is small, and I have noted that we've got so far 11,863 reported positive cases to date, 10,180 of whom have recovered. But with our small population at home, we've also lost 271 persons to COVID-19. What is most troubling to date is the fact that our daily case report um, hovers between 80 and 120.
Yeah.
And the latest uh, figures indicate that 19 persons, 101 persons, we had 101 cases, I think, on the 18th, 19 deaths. Um, what is wrong with our messaging? I mean, is something wrong? Is something wrong with the messaging of the government in the first place? And if so, what? And I'm finding it troubling that, to me, it seems as though, hitting on the point that you made about this attacking, the government seems not to be wanting or willing to work with the opposition in ensuring that there is one single
Right.
message
Yeah.
going out there to the people. How
Yeah.
impacting is that?
Yeah. Well, I think that explains why we are where we are. And people are under an illusion. As you know, I have today's newspaper in front of us, and one of the headlines: 3 men die of COVID, 101 new cases recorded.
Hmm.
So this is critical, and people think that what they don't realize is the point that you made, that we have a very small population. I've heard people say, "Oh, well, we ain't got as much as the U.S. The U.S. got 300,000 deaths, but the U.S. has, I think, over 200 million people. We don't even have 1 million people. So on a per capita basis, that's
Yes.
where we're making the mistake in thinking that we're okay." Now, in addition, the fact that the US government will make an international announcement and tell people not to come to Guyana tells you how seriously that is, because they know the implications on the economy, like you say, people not traveling, all those other associated issues, and how it would impact on Guyana negatively. So they take when they have to do that, you know that you're in a serious place and they need to protect their citizens. But even before they did that, 2 days ago, we had PAHO WHO saying, making another announcement internationally, because that official does not live in Guyana. But Mrs. Etienne was saying, Dr. Etienne was saying that they are most concerned about French Guyana and Guyana.
Hmm.
And again, with the high alarming rates of COVID, anybody could go online, go to BBC, go to any newscast, Al Jazeera, CNN, and you will see the reports on what's happening in Brazil. And the challenging thing that everybody is seeing all over the world in the last 2 months is that young people are dying.
Yep.
So before, when you thought it would be the over 60, 70, 80 with conditions, it is across the board. And that's why we have to be careful. Now, I want to show you where Guyana continues to fail consistently all the time. When COVID started in February of 2020, we were still in the seat of government. And we made a very deliberate approach in that when the COVID task force was set up, we said that there are some things that you cannot not include members of the opposition in. That as Guyanese, as members of parliament, as officials, whether you're in government or you're in the opposition, you have to do what is right for Guyanese and for
Mhm.
the country. And therefore, we deliberately ensured when we set up that task force, former Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu was in charge of that. We invited the then opposition, headed by Mr. Jagdeo, to sit on that task force. And it is my personal opinion, they refused to be part of it.
Wow.
They used the time to just berate, to cuss down. You don't know what you're doing, this, that, the other. Think about it. The only place today that we are able to put patients that have COVID are in that same hospital at Lilliandale. And in August, we started in March 2020, and by August, September of 2020, there was a building that had been opened by former President Granger. And people could actually go there if they had COVID and we could isolate them. This is the same hospital that they spent a lot of time screaming and shouting and cussing about corruption. And there was no basis for it. We would have been in a worse state. All they had to do is to put the furniture and the things in place, the small, minor things.
Hmm.
Now, the reality is that when they came in, having for the 5 or 6 months said that everything the previous government was doing was wrong, they came in on the high horse and then changed all the different arrangements. They changed the times of the curfew. They changed some of the different things. Businesses could open. We were doing it in a very systematic way. Everything open, be back to normal. And then now, slowly but surely, they've had to backpedal. But in that backpedaling, time has passed. People have been irresponsible, and more people have died. That is the result of it. And I do feel that if, when they came in, they extended the same invitation, not because of any political issue, but because on issues of health, on issues of education, on issues of our territorial integrity, we feel that all Guyanese must work together.
Yeah.
Whether you come from different political parties, whether you like each other, you don't like each other, we have a responsibility to serve the people of Guyana and make sure Guyana is safe. If members of the opposition and other stakeholders were invited to be on that task force, imagine any kind of decisions on that task force would be filtering out to almost the entire population,
Mhm.
because we would be sending those same messages and approaches to the 50% that we represent and the various stakeholders, the community groups. That is how we should be doing it. We all should be speaking with one voice. You can't have one set saying, open up, open up. I want to be able to sell my food and my casino got to operate, or my bar in Main Street or anywhere else must operate. And other people saying, no, we need to close. We need to encourage people to stay home. Teach your children at home. Use the time to do other things that the society of today demands. So that's where we're at.
That is troubling because even in America here, um, well, I mean, it seems there's a phenomenon around the world
It is.
where people who are considered to be ultra conservative are the ones who are trying to persuade people to believe that COVID-19, number one, is not real. Number two, the vaccines aren't safe to use. and all of that. In Guyana, like we said, Guyana is Guyana is sandwiched, as we like to say, between so many countries that are devastated by the COVID-19 virus.
Yeah.
And yet, we're not seeing the kind of collaboration that there should be
Yeah.
between the executive branch of government and the legislative branch of government, or to be more specific, between the executive branch and the opposition,
Yeah.
so that we can push this whole thing and get the people involved and get them convinced or get them uh, engaged so that they will want to be safe. And what I'm noticing is that uh, in some areas, the government has people who are going around, and I'm not saying it's wrong. You have people who are going around picking up folk who are on the street beyond the hours of the curfew. But those are in the general areas or in the areas that are considered to be opposition dominated or areas. But in their areas, they're not doing the same. And it's one is led to believe that there's some degree of folly in such a practice. For example, I've seen people going around Georgetown picking up people, but yet still you have places like Enterprise on the east coast of the Emerald where people are partying into the wee hours of the morning, and no vehicle, no police, no soldier vehicle goes in there to pick up the people who are doing that.
Right. Right. Very, very true. Very true. And you know what? But there's another important issue that we need to consider. It doesn't make sense that you're picking up people and then you're putting them in a bus and you're partying in the bus. What kind of message are you sending? You know. Um, so that is part of the folly. One of the reasons too, we went to some of the communities yesterday, is that we realized that we needed to tell our own people again, one on one, how serious it is at this stage, because we are in a very critical situation. And therefore, if the messages are not getting out through the state and the national media and their mixed messages, we went to our constituency to say, folks, this is serious.
Hmm.
You need to stay in your corner. You need to take, I know people have personal views about the vaccines. I still promote that it is protection, and we
Yes.
encourage people to take it. It is a challenging time because everywhere in the world, when you would have had 5 years to finalize a vaccine, we've had only a couple of months,
Hmm.
right? A year or a little more. So we know that there are issues. But the important thing is realizing that people must get the correct information, and we must set the example. We must set the example.
I want to jump on the point that you've made there with regard to the vaccine and the time span within which the vaccine was developed. Um, I want to, I had a discussion with someone recently, and I was telling the person that people are wondering why it is that or how it is that they were able to come up with this vaccine in such a short space of time. And I said, in we have different things, whereas it would have taken maybe 4, 5, 6 days to make one car 10, 15 years ago. Today, with the advent and the development and advancement of technology, you a car is made in like 2, 3 hours. Why aren't we skeptical about driving in a car that is
Yeah.
made in 2, 3 hours, but we're skeptical about using it or taking a vaccine that is made in 5 months?
But that's a classic example. And I could add to that example by saying that a car, and I think it's the same with vaccines in a very simplistic way, a car must have either 3 or 4 wheels.
Yes.
Most cars got 3 wheels. We know it must have a roof, it must have an engine, it must have some kind of braking system. There's some basic components that make up a car.
Hmm.
And from my understanding and reading, I'm not a medical professional. There's some basic components that go in to the making of vaccines.
Yeah.
And we've seen the experts explain that. And then, of course, depending on the specifics of the kind of virus, whether it's a flu virus, COVID, which actually we know existed prior to this epidemic. There are different strains. So the research has been ongoing, you know? So it's
Yes.
not as if you're starting from scratch and you're now working out how to make the wheels, how to make a braking system. And that's why we give thanks that we're actually able to have medicine and science that has given us something to work with, you know? But then we have to do our part. To say that
Yeah.
you're not wearing a mask, as simple as that is, and you're not going to be responsible, I don't need to wash my hands, you know, I don't believe in the vaccine. I got a right. I got a democratic right not to wear a mask. But I'm not thinking of my fellow citizens' democratic right to life
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you can infringe on their life.
Yeah. It's worrisome, but I guess these are some of the challenges that we have in life. And I want to go back to your previous statement with regards to the role of the state media and the role of government in particular. This is where I think the government should be, especially like the Minister of Health, should be putting systems in place to have interviews with some of these same top-notch officials from PAHO, from WHO,
Yeah,
from even the CDC here in America, where some of the vaccines come from. Interview, ask, I think you could engage Mr. Dr. Fauci and all these guys so that your own constituents can hear everything that they need to know about the vaccine.
that's a good point too. To energize the discussion, energize
Hmm.
the discussion. I have seen Dr. Carpin, who I have the greatest respect for. He does a good discussion program on aspects of it. But then, when the Minister of Health speaks, every night there's a COVID update, and every night he's sitting next to a flag of Guyana and some purple laws of Guyana in the background. In fact, I have turned it on, and sometimes I say to myself, I've said it out loud. Is that from last night or is this something new? Because the background alone is the same. So it doesn't encourage me to listen to what he's saying. You know,
Mm.
can you be creative? This is a time when you want to send a message to young people. Have you created some special kind of approach that's hip, that looks good, that can send a message to them, you know?
Yes.
Did you take a camera out on the seawall on Sunday and have a discussion with them, with two of them, and let them understand why they shouldn't be on the seawall? Why do you think every night sitting by a flag and purple law books, and we're going to be encouraged to sit and listen to you? But you know, when the Minister of Health was giving his budget presentation 2 months ago, in the height of COVID, and everybody's worried, we were there waiting to hear him talk about COVID. Everybody has 15 minutes for their presentation and also an extra 5 minutes. The first 15 minutes, all he did is lambaste. It was a
Hmm.
political talk, nothing about COVID. In the 3 minutes into his last 5 minutes was when our Minister of Health started to talk about COVID. So when he had 17 minutes to talk, right? COVID, sorry, not 17, 20 minutes to talk. We spoke about COVID for 3 minutes, the last 3 minutes. That, to me, is the testimony of how they feel about the situation. So, Guiney, you protect yourself.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, like I was saying, how much better can we expect of them when, in the first instance, when the AP and UFC Granger administration was in office and pushing for safety and prevention against this infection, they were out on in front of GCOM talking about protecting ballot boxes in containers. So
Yeah.
now I'm saying it is going to be difficult for them now unless they confess to the people that we erred. We were wrong at the time, and I find that's what is wrong with Guyanese politics. We were wrong. The message that we gave was wrong. The example we set was wrong, and we're trying to correct that now. We encourage you to go take the vaccine. We encourage you to observe safe distancing, etc., etc. You know, I don't understand why is it that big men can't admit when they would have erred. But I want to slide on to I want to slide on to uh, other elements of your work as a parliamentarian. Um, but you were about to make a point, and go ahead. After that, I'll ask the next
No, no,
question.
no, no, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Um, I want to bring up the elections matter. Um, I'm seeing in today's chronicle that the Commissioner of Police and the DPP have decided to, um, if necessary, take legal action to access the SOPs, the certified SOPs, and the certified SORs from the court's registrar. I've observed that apparently the Commissioner of Police asked for those documents to put their case together, and she said bluntly she cannot give it to the Commissioner of Police because he doesn't have the right to have them.
Yeah.
What is there to hide that they don't want the Commissioner of Police to access those official government documents, which are the people's documents, so that they can build a case or invalidate the claim that they had made against these GCOM workers? I don't know if you're aware of what's going on.
I only know what's in the public domain. And what I will say is that that recount process, which was witnessed by stakeholders, members of all the political parties, and the thousands of challenges um, with that result were documented.
Hmm.
Were documented. It wasn't an imagination. The fact that they want to pay no credence to the fact that there were so many errors that questioned the integrity of the process, because that's what it is. How
Hmm.
can society feel confident in a process when so many things go wrong and are
Hmm.
documented? So that really, to me, we know how the thing went. This problem was not what they allege about Mr. Mingo.
Mhm.
The courts are going to decide what in fact happened.
Yes.
But in addition to Mr. Mingo, there are about another 3,000 incidences, including the current Attorney General giving people um, ID cards in a very suspicious manner at the back of a bus. Um, all of that is documented and is there,
Hmm.
right? So what I'm saying is that it's for the courts to decide. Now, this issue about accessing the statement of polls, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't really want to tread too much in that area because I think there are legal requirements as to how they are protected, how things are kept in a safe way, where they're stored. All these are real issues. I mean, to the public, today we have very little confidence. A
Hmm.
couple of days ago, we were seeing security officers attached to canoe. We saw that video post sharing,
Hmm.
right? We saw that for more than 6 months, the police could not deal with the issue of who had killed those Henry boys and sing in such a violent manner. The Henry boys more so, given the destruction of their bodies, the pain that they would have suffered. For 6 months, we had no progress on that. The society went and got international help. And
Mhm.
although the president said that he was committed to this, he could not write the check. So we could write the check for a lot of other things that we're doing. Quite rightly, we send a lot of money and supplies to St. Vincent, as we should. But the 3 million or $7 million check could have been written to have the international experts that know how to deal with situations like the demise of the Henry brothers come here and give their expert advice. They got a run around and they never came. So
But,
it's in a bad way.
yep, indeed. But I mean, like you said, the courts ought to decide, what really transpired. And I am thinking, I'm surmising that your hope is that the courts remain uh, true to the objective of the body, that is to be fair and balanced.
Yep.
How much confidence can one repose in the court system today, observing what transpired over the last year or so?
It's been a challenging time, but as a person that is very close to the law,
Mhm.
although I'm not a lawyer, I will always respect the importance and the integrity of the system. And so I prefer to answer that by saying that all of us have to ensure that the system functions. And that is why, one of the things that the APNU AFC government did was ensure that the judiciary and the parliament would have their own independent source of funding. And as you would know, some of those approaches have been changed because we didn't feel that you got to go to the Minister of Finance to question how much money you need. That judges and magistrates would have to be, um, respond, so to speak, to the boss. And that's why they had been set up as very independent agencies, constitutional bodies. You put your budget together. We respect that you are going to be reasonable with your budgets. And if the judge says we need, or the magistracy or the legal, the judiciary says we need 100 million, we respect that and we give them the 100 million.
Mm.
We have the checks and balances in place to make sure it's not wasted, it's not, stolen or anything like that. But to get back to a stage where a judge got to speak to somebody about their own promotion and that kind of nonsense does not augur well for the integrity of the system and the independence of the system. So we have to keep advocating and we have to speak out. Whether whatever you perceive the judge to be or not to be, we got to make sure that the system forces all the judiciary to act in a fair and responsible manner because that's the only other thing we have. After we fuss and we fight and we quarrel and we cuss, is only the judiciary and the law could keep us from disintegrating as a society. So we can't take that for granted.
Mind-boggling, as I said before. But I am trying to be just as hopeful as you are. And I respect the fact that you said, as somebody who's close to the law,
Yep,
you have taken a certain posture, and you're encouraging all of us to take the same, adopt the same posture.
yep,
I respect that a whole lot. Coming on to the end of the program, I know that you're a busy woman. You have other things to take care of as well. I noticed that crime in Guyana is spiraling out of control once again. Pre 2015, the crime situation in Guyana was bizarre. That's the only word I can use to describe it.
yeah,
Post 2015, pre 2020, August 2, it was manageable. And even though it was manageable, I know that AFC public security was in the AFC's domain, technically, so to speak, under Mr. Cameron Ramjet. And although he took a lot of flacking, I think he did a very good job in keeping it on the wraps. But now it's gone crazy again. What is going on with that?
Well, we went, it's not easy, but I think President Granger had a commitment to ensure that he had men of integrity within the higher echelons of the police force. As you know, he actually created a structure where there was more autonomy, and there were more officers in different locations managing the issues of crime. In a matter of days of this new administration, they deliberately set out to undo. We didn't even consider what might have been working, what would have improved in what areas. Just on a matter of principle, if you put this man here and you got rid of this one, I getting rid of he and I bringing back the other one, regardless. So that's the nonsense that we've done.
Hmm.
That's the nonsense that we've done. And it's not coincidental. It's not coincidental that you now see the bad elements in the police force thinking that they are a law unto themselves. You can't arrive at somebody's place, go in the yard, and then start to scream and shout and threaten that you're going to close, you're going to shoot the dog. What about the days when one person would walk in, sir, we need to speak to you. We need to inspect your place. Here is the warrant that we have.
Mhm.
Please, for your security and that of your family, let your wife and child stay inside, please. Please lock up the dog.
Mhm.
What's
Mhm.
wrong with us? What is wrong with us? I saw a clip with that poor child holding on to his father, traumatized and crying, and a man up and down with a gun in front of them. You know what that child is going to be like?
Hmm.
It's the
Hmm.
same thing we did to Chris Jones.
Yes.
You didn't arrive a man that is doing a show 4 times a day on television. Because at that time, that is what Chris was doing. I worked with him on that show. 4 times a day. Everybody know where to find Chris Jones. Chris
Mhm.
Jones say hide. He didn't jump on no boat or gone to Suriname or anything. All around the place. You don't say, Mr. Jones, we need to speak with you. Can you come down to the police station? In fact, I think he had done that on one occasion. You're going to black out an entire area where he lived and a whole set of police cars and people with guns, and you come outside for some chairs? Please, please, you
And now,
know?
now I'm noticing that they seemingly want to do the same thing to Mr. George Norton.
Yeah, they will do it to everybody. They will do it to everybody. They will
Yeah.
do it to everybody. But you know what? On the spiritual side, there is a God.
Yes.
And we say that he doesn't sleep. So I
Certainly.
do believe all these things that are happening in Guyana are for us to understand and reflect and get a message from it. Whether we choose to do it or not is going to be our failing,
Mm.
right? But I
Yes.
was saying to some folks yesterday, we're one of the few countries in the world today that should be smiling because we have an opportunity with oil to do better for our country. But if we're going to continue to create divisions, I was in Lovely last yesterday and I took down at least 22 names of people that did not get their COVID cash grant.
Hmm.
So, in some communities, and it's true, in some communities, if there are two different households, one living upstairs, one living downstairs, it's two different sets of monies.
Yeah.
But conveniently, in other communities like our communities, like I saw in Lovely last, right? It's not two communities. The people are not related. The man
Hmm.
that owned the house, even if he ain't living in the house or not in the area, he is going to get the money. So those two families will not get anything. And we have records that distinguish between households. How many households do we have in Guyana?
Hmm.
And the funds should be allocated to households. If you truly intend to help people, I know relatives in the US where everybody getting the check
Yep.
in a free and fair manner. Everybody's getting the check. Look at all the screaming and shouting. We can't even give out $25,000 that could only help in for a couple of days. We can't even give that out in a fair and respectful manner. Why can't we do it in a manner so that when we finish, everybody say, "Oh, I'm glad Guyana is looking after me as a Guyanese at this difficult time." The discussion got to be where is PPP, where is APNU, who ain't get, who get, why? Why are we like that?
Hmm.
Unless we are able to live together, and we know this, Ranford, from other parts of the world. South Africa and apartheid stopped
Hmm.
because the white South Africa could not continue to face the onslaught that they were under. Maybe it was 100 black people today and only 20 whites today. That kind of society, nobody can live in peace.
I I want to get to my last question to you, and then I'll have you speak to the guy and these people on any issue, any matter that you want to represent. I have noticed. I did some extensive research last night on communism and the rise of communism and authoritarianism. And I observed that I posted a few videos as well on it. I observed that Eastern Europe became communist after Stalin in Russia focused on kicking out the democratic leader there. And then he spread his tentacles around and brought communism to all of those other countries, Poland, Czechoslovakia, which was one of the last countries to fall. And those persons, those countries in which the leaders weren't willing, the democratic leaders weren't willing to bend, they actually got some of them executed, some of them were jailed for no reason at all. And I sat there and I started thinking, is this Guyana? Is this where Guyana is headed? Because it's like in the same manner, it's the same trend where democracy, the press was silenced in the first instance,
Yeah.
and then they started gradually imprisoning those leaders who they considered to be democratic or anti-communist or authoritarianism, and therefore gradually wove their way into the community. Those people who opposed it, they just simply killed them. And I'm looking at those pictures and looking at Guyana. What's happening?
It's the same. It's the same modus operandi. And I'm not
You,
aware that the PPP in their constitution has changed. Do you remember the discussion about 10 years ago as to whether they were going to change the statement that they were a communist party?
mm-hmm,
Have they
mm-hmm.
changed that?
Not that I know of.
All right.
Not that I
And
know of, but it seems as though,
silencing the media is the foundation of democracy. We were talking about that at the
yes,
start of this program.
yes,
Did we have a time where for decades people could not, people that applied for radio stations could not be given a license? Do you remember that?
yeah, mm-hmm,
I like to remind people because every time I say that, I am reminded that my father, who created the Caribbean News Agency, who was a founding member, created the Caribbean Broadcasting Union,
mm,
who had a successful career with the UN and was given all kind of accolades in the Caribbean and in New York and the UN, had an application for a radio license in Guyana. for years, never granted. You could not have gotten someone who internationally was more respected in the area of broadcasting,
Mm.
right? Started right here in Guyana, was the first general manager of the radio station in Guyana,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you deliberately do not allow some people to get radio licenses. We know that when they did come, Mr. Robert Prasad, wife got, or whoever got, and whoever else got, whatever. One or two people that were, reputable people that threw in, but by and large, it wasn't a system that was fair and objective. And then when you talk about killing people, as has taken place in communist countries, we've had a couple of people that are no longer with us. I will mention Mr. Waddell. I
Yes.
will mention Mr. Crumb Ewing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to say anything else.
Sure. Message received. But
Loud and loud and
loud
clear
and
I hear.
clear. How we talking about the PPP's modus operandi?
Yeah.
How effective is the parliamentary opposition in counteracting the devastating actions of the government? Well, the executive branch of the government, who are trying to, you know, drive hardworking young black people out of the public service, and ultimately it's going to be out of work because they will not be able to secure jobs in the private sector. How effective is the opposition's approach towards counteracting them?
Well, first of all, I think that they will be able to get jobs in the private sector. They may not be able to get jobs in the public sector. And I say that because, when you're in the public sector, you realize that deliberately the public sector has not been built up to be the kind of professional um, entity that it should have been. And so in 2015, we really had to start bringing in a lot of a higher level of person and staff also into the public sector. I'm not saying that there were none there, but what I'm saying is that there were so many vacancies and they still have. But remember, at that time, I'll give you a classic example. A confidential secretary in the public sector would get $55,000. So you're not able to attract really a good person, um, a person with the requisite skills that you need.
Mm.
So I could tell you, I mean, initially when I first went in, I used to do a lot of my own letters and so until they were able to raise the salary a bit and we can get someone with a little more qualifications, a university graduate or whatever, with who came with more skills.
Hmm.
The problem the opposition has, and we Guyanese like to take an easy way out. As a country, and I say this because I've lived in Jamaica and I've learned and looked at how the Jamaicans operate, and I have the utmost respect for them. Jamaicans don't make no joke. Jamaicans are very strong that this country is theirs.
Mm.
This is their country. And every Jamaican independently feels that they have a right to certain things.
Mm.
So I am 100% sure that the stuff that took place in Guyana after 2020, there's no way it could happen in Jamaica. No way. No way. You can't send home a cleaner just because she happened to be a friend of somebody. Who she
Mm.
votes for is her private business.
Yes,
Who her friends
certainly.
are is her private business. It has nothing to do with her ability to do a job. So you cannot go into a ministry, which they did, and just because all these different people are alleged. And worse yet, in the case of my former ministry, there were two drivers that were employed since 2011.
Mm.
2011, I think one was 2013 with the ministry. But just because in 2016 they started driving Cathy Hughes, in 2020 they were supposed to be out of a job. Seriously. There's no fake news. So when we like, my concern is that sometimes we like to take, as Guyanese, we take the easy way out. Oh God, the opposition ain't doing anything. The opposition ain't saying anything. The structure that the opposition has to operate in is in the parliamentary structure. Right now, whether you like it or not, we have a speaker that in many areas is not even allowing some of the debate to take place.
Yes.
Right? We had a police that investigated a woman being shoved in the face. And the two eyewitnesses they did not interview and did not take into consideration the eyewitnesses because guess what? The eyewitnesses happen to come from the same political party as us. What is the message that you're saying?
Hmm.
You're saying that unless, if there's an act of violence anywhere around that parliament, unless a PPP MP is strong enough to stand up and say, I saw it and it happened, the police are not going to investigate and consider anybody else. You see what a
It's
dangerous place we're at?
sad. It's sad.
And
And
that's
indeed,
why,
it's dangerous.
I am very proud of the work the opposition is trying to do against all the odds
Mm.
with limited resources. These folks are not even decent enough to give the office of the opposition leader, the opposition, all that the previous leader, the opposition got. There's a level of decency. If you're supposed to get X, Y, and Z, give X, Y, and Z. Be the bigger man.
Yes.
Why you got to be low down and want them to have to come and say, oh man, you gave Mr. Jagdio 5 printers. We supposed to get 5. As the leader, the current president, you should feel and have a little more class than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose they're gonna come for me today.
Well, um, some persons have been making some ridiculous comments in the chat, but we're not paying attention to that. I ignore ignorance,
Yeah,
and I promote intelligence and intellect. So that's what we're doing.
absolutely.
Yeah, we
Absolutely.
don't pay attention to the ignorant ones who come
It's
on
yeah,
online.
you know what it is, and this is something that I feel very strongly about, and I know we're wrapping up because I gotta run too.
Hmm.
But it's the integrity of the man. It's the integrity of the person.
Yeah.
You know, in recent days, we have a COVID pandemic. And one thing, if people are honest, whether you are tall, short, black, white, PPP, PNC, web, AFC, whoever, you look at the garbage that's accumulating around our city now. Piles of garbage. It's a health risk.
Yeah.
Now we know that the mayor, the mayor and city council got challenges. Loads of people haven't paid their taxes. The government is not paid up on their taxes.
Hmm.
Write the check. Write the check so everybody could get garbage collected. Why
Hmm.
would you want to add to people's personal challenges? You didn't give them the COVID $25,000. Now you want that person that ain't got a job. They got to try and teach their children at home. They got to find money to go and collect a workbook and carry back a workbook for their child's education if they don't have internet. And now you want them to find $1,000 or $500 to pay somebody to collect their garbage? What kind of country are we? You ought to be ashamed. Write the check. And a similar analogy would be if you're a man and you got 5 children, I don't know what kind of man you are. If the mother of your children got to come and stand outside the workplace and beg for you to give her money to look after your children,
Hmm.
the measure of the man,
Yes.
we got to start stepping up.
Well, I guess there's no class. I guess there's no class in some quarters, so I don't know how good it is to how profitable it is for us to assume or to engage or to indulge in the thought that some people have the ability to step up. I don't know how
Yep. Yep.
how that works. But your parting thoughts
My,
to your constituents.
thank you. My parting thoughts would be about COVID.
Mhm.
We have to be safe. People will know today that the US has made an announcement telling people not to travel to Guyana. We amongst ourselves as Guyanese know it's not safe. Please limit your activity. Limit your activity. Even if they say you could be on the road, right? Till
Mhm.
4 o'clock in the morning, no reason to be on the road. You're putting yourself and your family at risk. Go home. You may not necessarily get all the right messages and encouragement that you should get now, but you're smart enough as people to do your own research and to know that you have to protect yourself. So I want people to be safe. The other thing is that I want our constituents to know that if you've not been able to collect your COVID cash grant, please send your name and where you live and a number to the office of the leader of the opposition or to any of us. Most of your MPs are on Facebook. You can message us on Messenger or on Facebook. We're putting together a dossier so that we would be able, hopefully, to say these persons have not collected, and we're assuming that the system will do the right thing and ensure that those that didn't get would fairly and eventually get their monies. And then the other thing is, it's always easy to sit and say nothing. But I urge people when they see wrong, you have to do right. You have to do right and speak up. And there are enough ways that you can send us messages and information through social media or in a note or in a letter. So we look forward to us working together for a better Guyana that all Guyanese can live in, regardless of your race, your creed, your political affiliation. Guyana has to be able to provide for all of her citizens at this critical time. Branford, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving us the time of day. I mean, like, it's this early in the morning. I know that both parties in the home have things to do, and you've got other members of the household to take care of. Thank you so much. It's so difficult to be a mother and a wife and a politician and a public servant all at once, and then make time to give to the Guyanese people on an early morning show. Thank you so much. God's richest blessing to you and the family.
And thank you. And good luck. Continue to keep up the good work. Glad you're on. And we keep in touch.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. You're so welcome.
Have a wonderful day, Guyana. Be safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was our beloved Cathy Hughes, the former Minister of Communication in the APNU AFC administration. Um, we want to thank her so much. She, it's kind of tight to be working. As she said, they were out very late yesterday. Had a very long, tiresome day, and then having gotten in late last night, jumped up this morning and was early enough to join us and give us some of our time. Very important points made this morning, and I trust that the discussion was informative to you. I just like to advise that while we're talking, and these low, low esteemed people, these people of little or no intellect, come on and they make their disparaging remarks, but you ignore them because eventually they're going to be removed and the persons will shall be blocked. So have no fear. Don't worry with them. Don't take them on. Don't respond to them. You listen. You listen to what is being imparted because the time that you take to respond to them, you're going to miss a point that might be very critical to your existence. So ignore those people. I don't want to call them fools, even though they ought to be described as they behave. But Guyana belongs to all of us, and I dare say, many of these people who behave this way are not living in Guyana. So listen, I've come to learn something. Many of the people who say these foul things don't live in Ghana. They live in North America. Particularly, some of them live in the USA because in Canada they can't go on with an answer. The Canadians, the Guyanese Canadians will fix the business in a minute, personally and individually and in person. They get off because they're here in the States. They say these things because nobody up here would follow them up because this is a free country. This is a democracy in which you can say whatever you want as long as you don't liable yourself. Or as long as you don't threaten somebody, you can say whatever you want. So don't bother with them. Don't answer them. Leave them, and they will eventually feel stupid. They will eventually feel stupid. I have learned a lot from the conversation. I have been better informed, and I've been encouraged to continue pressing ahead, continue to inform the guys, continue to share a word of advice with you as we go along. And as long as we can make each other comfortable, make each other happy, improve each other's life, and probably to some extent livelihood, we're in good stead, we're in good shape. I want to remind you too, just like America, most people in Guyana are good people and well meaning people. Most people in Guyana are good and well meaning, like we are. Like Mrs. Hughes, the Honorable MP, indicated early up in the show. Uh, most Guyanese are welcoming and good and all of that. It's just that some people have allowed the corrupt minded politicians to get to them, their message to get to them, and they act crazily. Let me ask you a question. Is there any way that you would find Bharat Jagdeo or Anil Nandalal? Well, I can't say Anil for Anil Nandalal. But, is there any way that you would find Bharat Jagdeo going out there with a gun and shooting people or boxing people up publicly all over the place? You're not going to find that. But he will have possibly his henchmen doing it. So why would you allow what he says to influence you? Why would you even allow yourself to become one of his henchmen? Guyana belongs to all Guyanese. As long as you were born in Guyana, you're a Guyanese. You're entitled to every right and benefit that any other Guyanese is entitled to. Guyana belongs to all of us. As long as you're a naturalized Guyanese and they give you that little thing they call citizenship, then you too become a beneficiary. And you're expected to conduct yourself in the manner as all Guyanese are required to. All right. So don't bother with those people who exhibit some sign of delirium or senility in some of their early ages because they're just daft. It's only ignorant people who behave like that. You can't even put arrogance there. You've got to say straight up ignorance because he who knows better does better. you know you can express your view on a particular subject or a particular matter or a particular issue without being disparaging. You can be very firm without being disparaging. You can be dissenting without being disparaging. So let's not bother with them. Let's not follow them too. We're just here for truth and right, speaking truth to power, and enlightening the Guyanese people on matters of national, political, and to some extent religious interest. All right. Uh, I'm not going to get into the debate of whether or not they have been installed and who should address them as installed government and all that. That's the politicians. I'm not a politician now. I'm not a practicing politician. I'm a social commentator. I am a public advocate. That's all, right? Somebody says it's a sign of autism. I'm not sure that this is a sign of autism. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for joining Andrew and I and our colleague on today's broadcast. But remember that we still need your support. Some people have been supporting us, committedly. We still need your support. And like I said, later in the week, once we clear some hurdles, we're likely to launch our GoFundMe for those persons who stand in need. We're not gonna do the one for the people in St. Vincent anymore because there are certain entities. I don't want to lead us down those legal cracks and crevices, those legal avenues to deal with that. So we're gonna just deal with the people who are in Guyana and need our assistance, especially for the people who are in the diaspora. We are the ones who can make a difference in the lives of some people, some of our brothers and sisters in Guyana. So we're gonna try our best to do so. Thank you once again. Drop your little mic, PayPal, BY Productions, by Productions at gmail.com, or Cash App, dollar sign, Bloco B2P. And we're still to get the Venmo and the others set up. But that's it for now. We want to thank you for joining us. Thank you once again, MP, the Honorable Cathy Hughes. On Wednesday, we should, once confirmed, we should have that sit down with Ms. Amanza Walton Nazir, MP, the Honorable. And then on Friday, we're hoping to engage once again Mr. Lincoln Lewis, the one and only Lincoln Lewis. We can get an update on what's going on with the labor industry in Guyana, and in particular, some of these land issues that are so prominent, so prevalent these days, where we have the one and only Anil Nandalal fighting people to take away their privately owned plots of land, allegedly, allegedly. So have a good day. Enjoy the sunshine in Guyana. It should be 80 plus degrees now. Here in the US, it's 63 degrees. It's going up, boy. It's going up. We looking kind of good, you know. We're looking kind of good so far. In Guyana, it's moved from 80 to 83 degrees, so we going up faster. But they said even though it's 83 degrees in Guyana, it feels like 90. It's gonna be a hot day, so make sure that if you're moving around, you move with lots of water, and make sure you take it in. Keep yourself uh, keep yourself hydrated. All right, that's it for now. Have a wonderful day. Thank God for safe day, safe night. Be safe out there. Put your masks on. Take the vaccine if it's available to you. We trying. We're still gonna be trying to see if we can get Dr. Baz. They're going to come on and give us some more insight on these vaccines and the whole developmental situation and so on. All right. Thank you for sending that little something there in Cash App. Thank you for responding immediately. And I haven't seen who it is as yet, but I know that I just looked at my watch there and I saw that we've got something that was just dropped in the Cash App. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. God's richest blessings to you. I'm looking forward to your company again on Wednesday. Tata, bye bye.